how we describe it is a more holistic view of self-care. Self-care has sort of become this like, you have to fill your own cup before you can fill anybody else's. Like, it's different than that. It's really looking holistically at your family and really prioritizing your family. And then the overflow from your family can have such a huge impact on your neighborhood, on your community, on the people around you.
We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Who wants to know what I discovered that's an absolute game changer with my hormones, stress level, and quality of my sleep? I am not one to talk about supplements, but after learning all about magnesium, I have to fill you in. In May of last year, I tested my hormones, and my doctor explained to me that most women are deficient in magnesium, how important magnesium is, and how the brand of magnesium matters. First, magnesium is involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions in your body. Cortisol regulation, take magnesium. Better sleep, magnesium. Muscle soreness and recovery, magnesium. Combat depression and anxiety, magnesium. The list of magnesium's benefits go well beyond those examples. I asked for the best brand of magnesium and my doctor said hands down, Smidge. She prefers Smidge because it's super clean and made in small batches. No fillers or common allergens and non-GMO. Smidge's magnesium is made with a premium form of magnesium called glycinate complex. After taking the 100 milligram capsule of Smidge Evening Magnesium every night for just a week, I noticed how much better I felt in the morning. Melatonin and other sleep aids can make me groggy or give me weird dreams. Smidge's magnesium has improved my energy levels, reduced my anxiety, and my digestive health has never been better. I do my best to take it every single night to keep reaping all the benefits. I'm telling you, Smidge Magnesium is a game changer. The majority of adult women are deficient in magnesium, and we don't want you to be one of them. To experience the health benefits of Smidge Evening Magnesium as soon as possible, go to getsmidge.com or find the link in the show notes and be sure to use code GOLDIVY10 for a 10% discount. That's getsmidge.com and code GOLDIVY10 at checkout and let us know how great Smidge Magnesium makes you feel as well.
Hey everyone, Brooke here. One of my biggest goals for 2025 is to improve my energy, and I know I'm not alone in that. I also know I'm not alone in what I'm about to say next. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I look forward to is my morning cup of coffee. What I don't look forward to is how much I rely on it to get me through the day and the stomach upset and crashes that come with it. I know it's hard on my hormones, energy, and stress levels, but man, is it a hard habit to break. Can anyone else relate? I want quick and easy, and I want energy. Saying goodbye completely to caffeine is out of the question for me, but trying it in a new way, that I'm open to. So let me tell you about my new obsession, Everyday Dose. Would you believe me if I told you my new morning cup of energy includes the following, and all in one simple scoop? We've got L-theanine, an amino acid that works to increase focus, balance insulin levels, metabolism, and lower stress and cortisol. We've got low acidity coffee extract, finally coffee that doesn't give me a stomach ache. Collagen protein to improve my gut health, skin, and nails. Chaga, a type of mushroom that supports immune system. And my favorite, Lion's Mane, a natural nootropic that helps reduce brain fog and boost my mood. In addition to it being the easiest and most effective morning routine, it's free of artificial sweeteners, additives, mycotoxins, and mold. I feel at ease knowing what's going in my body, all while feeling energized, calm, and focused all day. Check out their coffee starter kit. It comes with free gifts every month like a frother, gunmetal spoon, breathwork app, and more. Join Andrew and myself as we start our year and all 365 days with Everyday Dose. Visit everydaydose.com/goldivy and get your coffee starter kit delivered straight to your door. Use our code GOLDIVY to get up to 30% off your first order.
And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Brooke and I are so excited because we have such an awesome guest here today that we are so pumped to dive into everything, bringing the best to the nest. We have Elizabeth Ries in the house. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Oh, thanks, you guys. It's so nice to be with you. This is really fun, and I'm really excited to get to have a conversation with you that lasts more than 5 minutes on television. That's
true.
why podcasting is the best.
Yeah, we've been on Twin Cities Live with Elizabeth a few times. So Elizabeth, if you're just listening and can't see her right now, she is one of the hosts of Twin Cities Live. And Brooke and I, it's been our first couple experiences ever being on TV. And Elizabeth just made it so seamless and just like a normal conversation. And a lot of people ask us, like, what are they like in real life? I'm like, they're so relaxed. They're so friendly. And when we see someone in the public eye, where, people are always interested, like, how do they balance it all? What's it like being a public figure? How do you do motherhood and this and that and have people constantly staring at you everywhere you go, So we have a lot of questions for Elizabeth today. But that's kind of what I want to dive in first, is just talking about having such a public career, having people recognize you wherever you go. And how is that kind of balancing that public eye and private life? Like, how do you cope with that? How do you jive with that in your day to day?
That's, it's a good question. And it's sort of been something that's really evolved a lot over my career. So I've worked in television since I was 21, and I'm 43 and a half. No, I'm almost 44, you guys. Okay. So we're coming up on, 23 years in TV. And that's a long time. I started out in news. So when I worked in newsrooms, my first job was in a small market in Duluth, Minnesota, was just where I started. And then I moved to Green Bay and I was there for a few years. And then I came to the Twin Cities. And then I sort of had like this, classic like mid-20s, late 20s crisis where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And I need to figure out the direction that I want to go. And so it's been lifestyle television for a long time. And that was a real big shift because, being in the public eye when you're in news is a little bit different because it just isn't as dependent on your own self and your own personality and your own authenticity. I mean, I think those things are certainly important and they're differentiators for news reporters and news anchors in terms of their storytelling skills. But, your focus is more on the facts, being unbiased. I never had to navigate like saying an opinion that somebody would disagree with until I moved into lifestyle television. Turns out, ladies, sometimes people don't like your opinions and they don't even like you having an opinion, which has been kind of a fascinating thing. But I would say the key to success is a regular recalibration. So consistently taking time to look at okay, what's working, what isn't. If negative feedback from viewers or people on social media is bothering me, then what's going on with me that I don't quite have the right sort of armor on in order to continue through. And then some real perspective shifts. I posted about this, I think a couple of years ago, that in my 20s, when I would get criticized, I would be so filled with shame that I couldn't even vocalize it. Like and this was in the time when, we barely even had email. It was bananas. My first TV station, I think I had an email address, but people didn't really use it. People still sent letters. And if I would get something negative, which you do right away, I couldn't even like function. It was so difficult. And then in my 30s, I really got to a point where I felt like I had to fight back with everybody. Like I had to always, someone would write something to me and I'd be like, oh, and I would have to write them this whole thing of, this is why this is inappropriate. This is why this isn't okay for you to even say to me, that, all of this stuff, and kind of justifying myself. And then in my 40s, one of the best things that has happened is just the feeling of, frankly, just giving fewer F's about it. Of just being like, this is so much more to do about you. And at the same time, while that response sounds harsh, my reaction is a lot kinder now to other people, where I just go, if you are saying this stuff to me, I can't even imagine what you're saying to yourself. And so coming really at them from a place of empathy has been a big shift for me. And then, but like that's such a small portion of it. The vast majority of my interactions with people it's so nice. Like I go into a business or a restaurant and the people are happy to see me and excited and like, oh my gosh, it's you and you're here. I mean, that's very fun. It's like that kind of stuff is so fun. And people come up and tell me, things about like what the show has gotten them through or what the podcast has gotten them through. I hear from people who will say, oh my gosh, my mom loved watching your show so much. She got diagnosed with cancer and it was her bright spot. We would sit there during chemo and we would watch Twin Cities Live. She would schedule her appointments during Twin Cities Live so that she would have something fun and happy to distract her. And then they'll say like she passed away. And when I watch, I feel more connected to her. So, that kind of stuff, it's like, oh my gosh. And you realize what a privilege it is to be a part of people's daily lives and their daily rhythm. And they invite you into their homes and they invite you in for the good things and the bad things. And so it's very special. The good so far outweighs the bad. And, but navigating that evolution of the bad, I think has been good progress. I mean, who knows what I'll be like when I turn 50.
I love that you gave that progression, like 20s, you're like so much shame. And I mean, you're reading all this negative hate. And back then it was like physical letters. They're actually taking the time. It's a lot harder than just typing behind on social media. Do you still read comments today?
I do read comments because I like to interact with people. And so my husband would say that I should not read any comments. So, if he's listening, I don't read them. But I like to interact with people. You can certainly spot a pattern with some people where they just really struggle. And so, I'll see like the same person who just can't stop and just makes, we're in Minnesota after all, so there's a lot of passive aggressive comments. Like it's just so interesting where, particularly if you have partnerships with companies, and I'm super transparent about that. I partner with companies all the time. I've worked in TV my whole career. Guess how TV is free? Advertising. Right. So we have advertising partners through everything. How do you think that I create content? It's advertisers, So, I work with partners all the time. And like there was a woman who just repeatedly kept commenting like, well, must be nice to get that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Patty, if you have questions about how my partnerships work, ask away. I'm happy to share with you. We're transparent about all of our types of content that we do on the show and on social media. And I think people just get sucked into this hole where they compare so much on social media. And I regularly will remind with her, I just said, I just want to remind you that like we're all human and we're all doing our best. Like you're just not seeing the whole thing on social media. You're not seeing my whole life. There are plenty of hard moments that I'm not posting about. And you got to recognize that you're getting a little sliver. And then you have to recalibrate yourself and figure out, oh gosh, if I'm Patty and I found myself continually messaging to Elizabeth Ries from Twin Cities Live about how terrible she is, I might need to, as Patty, go, boo, boy, maybe I should like not look at her stuff because she's really triggering me,
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a lack of self-responsibility in terms of navigating the social media landscape.
Well, and I like Brooks, the evolution too of just technology over this time. Like you said, taking the energy, because like you'd have to figure out your address, put a stamp on it. Like they were really convicted to send you that message, which probably added to why you listened to it too. Like, wow, they really took the time to, because like those keyboard warriors, it takes 10 seconds.
Right.
But that's part of your energy, right? I see why your husband says, don't read them. Like it's taking up some of your energy, and you are a mother of 3 little ones. And run a household. And that's such a huge part of your podcast that you hinted at. Best to the nest.
Okay. Best to the nest. Yep.
Best to the nest. And I love this concept. And I actually want to read your tagline because it's so powerful. And I think you don't have to be a mom for this to mean something either, because our energy is everything. So it's bringing your best self to your home. The outside world shouldn't get the smiling, happy version of you, while your family gets the exhausted, crabby version. So this makes us think of, the balancing act of your professional life and your social life and all of the things that we juggle, right? And, as a mom, I have 3 kids too, and thinking like, I am creating this emotional home and physical home. There is something about taking good care of your home and making a sanctuary for them, right? And so I love this idea, and I would love for you to talk about the podcast and kind of the idea of starting it, the type of guests you have, and kind of how you take those topics and then tangibly put them into your own life.
Well, the podcast started, so we're on episode like 450. We've done a ton of episodes, and I co-host the podcast with my former radio partner at My Talk 1071. Her name is Marjorie Punnett, and Marjorie and her husband Ian hosted a morning show on My Talk for a decade. Ian and Marjorie became like family to me throughout, the years that we were on My Talk together. And even before that, Ian was actually one of the first people. He walked through the newsroom one day when I was doing a newsroom live shot, and he was like, I just want you to know that you have big things coming for you. And I was like, who is this guy? And then it turns out it's Ian, who is just a legend. And we became really close. And when Ian left the radio show, Marjorie stayed on at the station, and we did this show together for a couple of years, as I was engaged, getting married, and then having my first baby. So it was all during like a really big transition time for me. And Marjorie would say to me, she always says like, well, I don't give you advice. But I'm just going to give you a little advice. Like I don't give advice, but here's a little bit. And she told me that when she and Ian were early in their marriage, that they had this conversation about how it wasn't because he had a public job too. She went into a public job later, but that it was very important that that they didn't get the leftovers, that it felt intentional about trying to make sure that home got the best of you and then the outside got sort of the overflow. And that always stuck with me, and I thought about it a lot. And then we went on, I had a baby. I didn't come back to the radio show because I just knew that it was the first time I ever said no to an opportunity in my career, which was when they said, do you want to come back? We want to have you come back on the radio show. And I was like, I can't, because I just didn't have any wiggle room in my day. It was radio from 9 to noon and then TV in the afternoon. And it was just too much. If you have a sick baby, it's like, what are you going to do on those days? So I stepped back, and I was on a walk with my daughter, and she was probably like 6 months. We were out for a walk, and I called Marjorie, and I was like, I just keep thinking about that advice. And it just keeps coming to me, this idea of best to the nest, like the name, and always like ideas always come to me when I'm on a walk. This is why going out for walks is just so therapeutic on so many levels. But even the title came to me, and I said, I think we can have these conversations. And it's sort of like, we joke, it's like the conversations that we were having in the commercial breaks that then now we have turned into a full podcast. And so the idea is, it's sort of how we describe it is a more holistic view of self-care. Self-care has sort of become this like, you have to fill your own cup before you can fill anybody else's. Like, it's different than that. It's really looking holistically at your family and really prioritizing your family. And then the overflow from your family can have such a huge impact on your neighborhood, on your community, on the people around you. And we have a lot of conversations with experts on, tons of different topics, but at the core, it always comes down to being intentional about your choices, about your use of time, about where your energy goes, and also about what you're bringing into your home, what you're putting in and on your body. And intentional choices on a daily basis add up to a life that you feel like you are, with every decision, you're either you're moving forward or you're causing yourself more struggle. And so we're also very clear on the podcast that this is a journey. We are not, and we're not perfection at all. We talk a lot about our flaws. We have a lot of open conversations. And then throughout that, a lot of it is, what's going on in our lives. Since we started the podcast, I've added 2 more children. Marjorie lost her husband a year ago. Ian passed away unexpectedly, which was just very clearly very, very difficult. And I think it has shown us too, though, that through all of those things, having vulnerable conversations and creating a space for connection is what gets you through that stuff. Because Marjorie will say, like, she's an introvert and her reaction might have been to just go, "Ooh, I'm just gonna, close up. I'm gonna turtle shell. I'm just gonna go in." But because we had the podcast going, she didn't want to stop. And so we continued through that grief, and we've walked that grief with her. And it's just been really incredible. And she would say, it's still, obviously, it doesn't make it any easier to lose your husband, but it does make it easier to know that you're not alone.
Totally. And we've experienced that too. Like, we do a lot of health and wellness tips, but our biggest episodes and the ones that, people share are when people share a real, raw, vulnerable story. I mean, our number 1 episode isn't our introductory one. It's Allie, who came on to talk about losing her husband, and Lindsay, who came on to talk about divorce, and just a real, raw experience, because that's actually how we can take what someone did, and it empowers us, or it shows us how strong we are, and that, okay, if they can survive through that, or they can get through that, so can I. And that's what people are looking for. Like, they're just desperate for a connection because we're on social media, but it's not real connection, right? You kind of hinted at the comparison and the whatever, but if you hear someone's story, it's like you can have compassion for them. You can see yourself in it. And we love when people share like the vulnerable stuff because it matters the most. And we feel connected and we're not as separate or different as the world sometimes makes us feel, or we think that we are.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real need for nuanced conversation. And I think, social media is so fun because you can connect with people that you wouldn't have connected with. Like, I love that I get to see what, for example, I went to school at UW-Madison, and I have amazing women we were in the same sorority, and you don't necessarily keep in touch with every single person. But like, I have a friend who started this incredible swimwear line, and I get to see it, and I'm messaging her and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if you're ever in the Twin Cities, like, come on the show. Let's talk about it. I'm so proud of you." That kind of stuff, to just be able to reach out to people. But you have to remember to make the effort to turn it into real life. And I even had that conversation because, when I would do radio and TV, and my really good high school friends are here in the Twin Cities, and I would get together with them and they would be like, "Oh yeah, we heard you talking about this," or, "I know that this is going on because you talked about it on the show." And I'm like, "Yeah, guys, but okay, that's not a real friendship. Like, that's not our real friendship. You might think that I'm in your life every day, and I appreciate that, but that we are deeper than that. Like, we need to go deeper." And they honestly had to have like a little reminder of like, "Oh gosh."
Yeah, they think they know what's going on in your life from listening. Yeah, but you don't. Yeah, totally.
Right. But so I think that in person and, it is important. And then also giving yourself grace when you're in a time, you're just going to be in different seasons of your life. And when I talk about that sort of consistent recalibration, I just think that's really important on both a big picture, what's bothering me? What are my things what am I missing that I want to be experiencing or expressing? And then also, what's going on in my daily life? What are the pain points? What are the things that are really a challenge for me? And then how can I either get some help or maybe pay more to automate something to make that process simpler? And it doesn't mean that it's forever. You don't necessarily have to do these things forever, but it's giving yourself grace that in those difficult or really time-consuming seasons, like you talk about kids, mine are 10, 7, and 4. And, they're labor-intensive people, I mean, it's a lot of work to just like keep the wheels on the bus here, but it's nothing compared to what it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was drowning, I mean, it was, and I just couldn't even see the light. And I could not, the idea of getting to the grocery store was absolutely impossible. I had Instacart deliver every single bit of food that we had at this house because I couldn't even grasp the concept of even the mental energy that it would take to go into the grocery store, navigate a cart, look at people. And I'm like a pretty highly functioning person. And that was the tipping point of overwhelm. So I just said, I'm going to have to pay the tip and the fee to get the people to bring the
Also, that was COVID times too. So
Yes,
navigating that with
yes.
little kids that touch and lick everything.
Gosh. And now you have chickens and you
Oh, yes.
cook and farm life. Like can you kind of talk about how that has evolved over the years? Like when you talk about
Yes.
recalibrating, but 4 years ago it was having Instacart. What does that look like for you today?
And at what point will Brooke get chickens?
Oh, bro.
Never.
This can be your
Can I
thing.
use your
Register for a
chickens? Wait.
chicken coop.
She probably
Yeah,
doesn't know.
No, I think I told you on air.
Oh,
or
maybe.
maybe before we started recording that I'm terrified of birds. And you said you'll get over it.
You're like my sister. My sister has that flaw too. It's a fatal
flaw.
And you're both such good people, and you can overcome this. You really can.
And this is
You
where
just
we
gotta come
automate. I hire someone to deal with the chickens.
You can do that too, but it really you'll love them if you raise them from when they're small. I think that it would be different.
My
You're
skin is
welcome to come over to my
crawling.
yard at any time.
This would be great content.
There's also a chicken in a bookstore in Minneapolis that maybe we could have a chicken just roaming in here.
Yes.
See, right now, me recalibrating is calming my nervous system.
Calm down. Some people have a thing with birds. I get it because they flap their wings and they're they are little dinosaurs.
Right.
They're like the
Love
closest thing that we have to dinosaurs. I got backyard chickens almost 15 years ago. So we've had chickens for a really long time. And it started with the garden when I bought a little house in Minneapolis, a little bungalow, when I actually closed on the house the week I met my husband. And so closed on the house. It was the proudest moment of my life that I bought a house on my own. And it came with a garden in the back. And I'd always grown like everywhere that I lived if I had a balcony on an apartment, I had like some big pots that I would grow tomatoes or grow herbs and lettuces. And I really started getting deeply interested in where my food came from when I was in college. And so as that sort of progression, they were sort of progressing parallel, that I was just continuing to be really fascinated by and wanted to know how food is grown, who's growing it, what are the ways that it's being grown, that it is nourishing to both the environment and us. And then how can I create my home to be something that is creating something? It can be easy to think of our houses as like just these money sucks. And I always live in old houses, so they're like money pits by default. It's just constantly something going on. So I wanted our house to be a place where I could actually like go out into the yard and, pick some salad and grab an egg for breakfast and, have some herbs and make a pesto. Like all of that it makes you love where you live more because it's just giving you so much more. And then it was that ultimate connection to food, which has been so important to me and just continues. I just continue to get more. Some would say psycho about it, but whatever. I like to say enthusiastic.
What inspired that and back to college?
Yeah, that was so in college. This is actually really funny where you never know where your life is going to take you and what's going to impact you. So in college, I was living not a healthy lifestyle. I went to UW-Madison, and let me just say the cocktailing was aggressive.
Did you go to Mondays and Wandos?
I went to Mondays. I went to Wando's. I went to the KK. I went to Amy's.
Brats.
I went to Brats. I went to Paul's Club. I went to the Angelic. I could list them all. I was at all of them. I mainly had a fake ID the entire time it was happening. Those were the days. But I got a part-time job because I loved products. So I always loved I always thought makeup was so fun and like beauty products. My mom's from Texas, so she was always just we wear lipstick and hairspray and blah, blah, all these things. And so I got a part-time job at Aveda, at the Aveda store. And it's so funny how a part-time job can impact you in so many ways because I got a job there and I met the other girls that worked there. And I worked at two different stores, one in the Twin Cities and then one in a mall in Madison. And I got a great discount on products, which was like the best thing. And so I, when you started working there, you got a book that was by Horst Recalibration, who was the founder of Aveda. And Horst was a total visionary. He was Austrian. He came to Minnesota, got in an accident, and then ended up having to stay. And then met his wife, got married, had children here, started Aveda. And it was a green, beauty company before there was any even consideration of this, with also having a really high function. And at the cover of the book, when you opened it up, it said a quote from Horst, which was, "Everything we put in and on our bodies must be nutritious and safe." So something to that effect. I hope I'm getting it correct. But that really stuck with me. And so I started to kind of understand, like, okay, I would learn about the ingredients that I was putting on my body. And then I started to care about what I was putting in my body. And fast forward, almost 10 years after that, I ended up meeting Horst a couple of times. The second time I went and did a story on his amazing property in right on the St. Croix River in Wisconsin. And so he has, oh my gosh, I think it was 600 acres. It's like 4 miles of St. Croix shoreline. It's where the original Aveda Spa was. His home, it was just like incredible and totally eclectic. And I convinced him to do a story with me in this little series I was doing called Cool Homes. I wanted to interview people whose homes really reflected who they were. And I knew that he had like this sick property. Yeah. So I got in there, went and met him, and we just bonded right away. Like, he was making me wheatgrass juice shots and we were hanging out and chatting. And he's like, "I want to introduce you to my daughter. Like, you need to meet her. She's so wonderful." So ended up becoming really good friends with him and with his daughter. And he sort of became like this surrogate grandfather to me in the last few years of his life. And when my husband and I got engaged and were getting married, he wanted us to get married on his property. Oh. So we got married there, and we had a whole wedding. And he has like alpacas, and we have pictures with the alpacas. And he was very, very sick at the end with pancreatic cancer. And this was the last major event at his property. And before he passed away, and it turned into just like this amazing special connection. Isn't that like, wow. I mean, that's a wild story, but
well, and like think of like, you probably were deciding between a couple different part-time jobs. Like, should I work here
and
the
like butterfly effect,
quick trip, or should I work at Aveda? Like, you know what I mean? And then just looking at that quote and being, wow, that is such a cool story.
So that makes sense how this inspired to now, today, you're raising your own chickens.
Yeah.
What else are you doing that, maybe Elizabeth 10 years ago would never have imagined when it comes to holistic practices? Keeping the flu and common cold out of your household is important whether you're 5, 35, or 95. And we're going to tell you the easiest and most delicious way to do just that. It's with All Things Elderberry, a woman-owned business that has all-natural, vegan-friendly, and gluten-free elderberry products.
And when we say products, we mean a variety of delicious and beautiful products, not just for you, but for your entire household to get an immunity boost. If we had to pick our favorite product, I'm going with organic elderberry gummies. My kids are obsessed. We're trying to avoid sickness from school and make sure they can participate in their sports. So they take one every morning before they brush their teeth. They think the gummies taste like a mix of grape and cotton candy. I tried them too, and I can see why they ask for them every day. I love that they're boosting their immune system at the start of their day.
My favorite All Things Elderberry product is the elderberry green tea paired with the elderberry honey. The green tea gives me a midday boost, and the honey gives the tea extra sweetness. I also put the honey in my morning coffee instead of creamer. So good. All Things Elderberry is my solution for staying healthy before traveling, avoiding frequent colds and sinus infections, really just maintaining my health all year round.
What sets this brand apart from the others is there are no artificial additives in All Things Elderberry. Their elixir is made with organic, Missouri-grown elderberries, raw honey, and whole spices.
Elderberries not only help with immune support, but may also slow the aging process with their powerful antioxidants, improve skin health, and can shorten the duration of severity of colds and flu.
Visit allthingselderberry.com to explore their full range of immune-supporting products. Stay healthy and feel your best naturally. Use our code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order. That's code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order.
We're coming at you with important information, warnings, and a solution. Sharing health and wellness gold with you is what we do. And so when we learned alarming information about devices that we routinely use, and we know you do too, we have to share it with you.
What most people don't realize is that the electronic devices we're using, cell phones, Wi-Fi, laptops, and Bluetooth, emit electromagnetic fields, or EMFs. The devices we're holding by our brains, on our skin, by our reproductive parts are emitting EMFs, and prolonged exposure to EMF radiation has been associated with potential health concerns, including neurological effects, impacts on reproductive health, and sleep disturbances.
Those studies alone are a cause for pause. But also, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, that operates under the World Health Organization, has classified non-ionizing EMFs produced by electronic products like cell phones, smart devices, and tablets a possible human carcinogen. Yikes.
And our solution? SafeSleeve. SafeSleeve anti-radiation products are designed to give you peace of mind of knowing you and your devices are protected while making your devices even easier to use. All of their anti-radiation products incorporate their lab-tested shielding technology that can block over 99% of RF and 92% of ELF radiation. And that's important because the vast majority of products that claim to block EMF radiation either don't have any testing at all, or they only block a small portion of the harmful frequencies.
We absolutely love the sleek look of these stylish products. They come in a variety of styles and colors. For our phone cases, I picked black, Andrea picked tan, and they include a built-in wallet with RFID protection and a magnetically detachable inner case. They're also anti-radiation products for tablets, iPad, and laptops.
We are pumped because we have been looking for a brand to help protect ourselves and our loved ones from this radiation for months. My kiddos have the iPad cases. Searching for a brand with stylish phone cases, colorful iPad colors, and functional headphones for our workouts, so that we can enjoy our devices, but also not have to worry about how they're harming us.
And without a doubt, it's time to protect ourselves. Grab your SafeSleeve phone case today and any of their other groundbreaking products at safesleevecases.com and use our code GOLDIVY for 15% off.
Okay, well, 10 years ago is kind because it's probably more like 20 years ago because of how aged I am. But, I compost a ton. So I've got multiple compost bins in the yard. And so I'm always adding things to the compost and then adding that into the garden. That was a big thing. And I still do, by the way, I will go to the garden store and purchase some compost and soil to add into my raised beds. But I am hoping to be done with that. That is like definitely a goal, that I would compost so much on our property that I would just have enough to fill up. But I added a couple of raised beds last year. And so, you kind of have to keep building them up a little bit. But so I do a lot of composting. I have a sourdough starter. I make a ton of things with sourdough. I purchase a significant amount of our food directly from farmers. So, and I say this, I love grocery stores. I think particularly local grocery store chains are very, very important because they're so plugged into the local community. But if you can dedicate a portion of your food dollars to going directly to farmers, you really make a financial impact for them, because then you don't have a middleman in a distribution situation. You're able to purchase from them. So I think, I do, but I do all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I went through a kombucha making phase, and then I realized I don't really love kombucha that much, so I don't really need to make it. I've got the garden going, so there's always this is always a really fun time of year because I get it all planted and then we get to see what happens. But I'm not too particular or too precious about all of it. Sometimes things work and sometimes things don't. And I'm really thankful for farmers who put in the work and the effort to make sure that it works great. And so I try to appreciate them and honor them. I use my platform a lot to amplify the voices of farmers and to be able to just encourage people and to sort of normalize appreciating farmers and frankly advocating for them being paid fairly for their work.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for me.
The last time we were on with you and Ben, it was the inauguration. And you and Ben did a segment of, if we were president, what laws would we pass? And you said every home should come with a chicken coop.
100%. I
So-
absolutely believe that.
I can, say fully that you do use your platform to promote this kind of lifestyle. How many hours a week would you say you dedicate to the homesteading life?
It's pretty easy. The chickens are actually very easy. If you've had a dog, I will tell you that having chickens is like a tenth of the work of a dog. I
Really?
mean, maybe even less. It's so simple because once you get the coop set up, you clean it, once a week. In the summer, I really don't even clean it that much because they're outside in the yard so much that I don't have to. I check their feed, I check their water. I love being in the garden, so I probably spend more time in the garden than I really need to. And then, like maintaining my sourdough starter, making things from scratch. I know it can sound like a lot, but it's like little tiny things. Like while my kids are finishing up breakfast and I'm chatting with them, I just quickly feed the sourdough starter and move on.
Once you get that system, because it's tricky to
Yeah.
learn it, but I feel like once you get it, it's second nature.
Yeah,
I
it's
hear.
just like having the rhythm. And and I will say one thing that I'm really fortunate about that I know that not everybody has is that I have the ability to integrate things that I love to do into my day job. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is like I create content around what I'm doing at home. And I don't think a lot of content creators or quote unquote influencers are upfront enough about that. You'll see, I think specifically in the wellness space, it's very easy to see these like biohacker people who are like, okay, so I get up, I do my 30-minute meditation, then I do my workout, then I get into my sauna, then I mix my aminos, and then I make this breakfast. And you're like, you are 5 hours into this, and like, tell me how a nurse working a shift is going to be able to do this. Like, this is not in any way realistic. So I like to point out that, when I'm planning, for example, Wednesday mornings, I do a live shot for our show, Minnesota Live, from my kitchen. And so I do a cooking segment. So I'm working on a recipe and then I'm presenting that. Well, a lot of times I like plan and then we have that for dinner that night, so I'm strategizing like, okay, how can I make it that if I'm doing this, it's sort of counting for two things. It's counting for my home life and my work life. And I want to be very clear that I know that that's not realistic for everybody's job because people have different jobs where that's just not realistic for them. But that being said, I also think on the other end of that, spectrum, there's a lot of time that we're wasting. Like, and I am a real advocate of TV. I love TV. I think you should watch it every day, weekdays from 3 to 4:30. But like, if you're spending 4 hours a night watching TV, like that's a lot of freaking time that you could be making a loaf of bread. It's not, it really, I think we've sort of told ourselves that we don't have any time when we're not looking critically at the time sucks that are happening in our lives. Mindless scrolling, sitting there, watching TV without doing something else. I mean, like if you could learn to knit while you're watching TV, how great would that be? Thinking about sort of habit stacking a little bit and giving yourself a good hard talk about, it's the same thing with working out. I'm sure you face with people who are like, I don't have time to work out. Well, you watched 3 hours of an episode last night of a show. Like, I think you have 20 minutes to go for a walk. I really
Or do your
think you
squats while you're watching it.
Right.
Or,
And I get that way with money too, and again, I recognize I'm in a different financial position than probably a lot of other people. I also started in television making $9 an hour. So I very much understand the range of financial situations. But I'm like, if you're getting your nails done, if you're getting a gel manicure every 10 days, you have money to buy grass-fed beef. Full stop. That's my and I'm not going to back down on that. And I'm not going to I'm not even going to entertain an excuse because it's not about you don't have it. It's that you're not prioritizing it. And that's okay, but you need to be upfront and honest with yourself about it, because just going, I can't afford that. And the system is set up that it's too expensive. Well, yeah, the system is set up that healthy food is more expensive than cheap, crappy food. That's a huge bummer. But in the meantime, you also have control over your own expenditures and what you prioritize. Sorry, I got so sassy.
No,
but
no.
you know
Like
what?
it. I mean,
that fires me up.
You're highlighting values. Right? Like,
Yes.
do you value your health? What are you putting in your body? What are you putting on your body? So let's talk about more of that. The non-negotiables you have in your household that you swear by when it comes to developing a nest that you're obsessed with.
Yeah. Real food is top priority. Number one, the biggest thing that I think about all the time. And so real food, meaning, there's just a lot of things that we just don't have in our house. And it doesn't mean that that my kids don't get it when we're out and about places. It doesn't mean that we don't go to restaurants, because we do. But in our home, I am really pretty tough about what comes in, because, my kids just like, we're not eating Oreos as a snack because there's no Oreos in the house. I don't even go to a store probably that sells Oreos, it's just not an option. So real food is a huge thing. And I also think real food is so important, because even getting outside of yourself, if you can't prioritize your own health, prioritizing the health of the environment, prioritizing the health of farm workers, those things matter. It's a big deal. And so I really am thoughtful about what we bring in. So a lot of that is simplifying. And this is like the best part about it, is that it actually is easier to eat this way than to eat a different way. Because if you just go, all right, we've got some protein and some vegetables, and then whatever sort of like, I don't know, maybe we'll do like some rice, or I'll do like a lot of sourdough with butter on the side of things, a ton. I mean, for my kids, for like, we all love that. And then that's just what I make 9 out of 10 days. I just like make it really simple. Like, I'm going to roast a chicken. We're going to have that. I'm going to put some potatoes in to roast with it. And then maybe I'll like steam some peas, and then we'll have that on the side. It's very, very simple. So real food is a big thing. I think also being really conscious about the materials that I bring in. And this has been an evolution, but big things in my kitchen are no plastic utensils, particularly if you're using any plastic that's going to be heated. That is not on the table for us. So I do wooden utensils. I do metal utensils. The bonus of those is that they're really beautiful too. So like in my kitchen, I have this really beautiful vase that I got at this art store in Norway on a trip one time. And then I have it filled with all my wooden spoons. And it's like so pretty, it doubles as decor. As far as like pots and pans, I do carbon steel, stainless steel. And then I am obsessed with this clay cookware that it comes from Colombia, that has been made in the same way for like 800 years. And I buy it from a little store in Stillwater called Toxi Free. And I have I like build this collection that I love. And again, it sits in I have some shelving in our dining room that has, glass windows. So like, it's such beautiful decor sitting in there, and then you open it up and pull it out. Cleaning supplies are a big one too. I just am thoughtful about laundry detergents and cleaning supplies, and making sure that they're unscented, as chemical free as possible, in terms of like synthetic chemicals that have been shown to be, hazardous or endocrine disruptors. Those are the things we try to keep out. That's kind of, we're moving into textiles. Textiles is another big thing that I'm working on too. So it's an evolution,
Yeah. I think that's what I had to come to terms with. Is like, there's no end. Like, how do you enjoy the process of making your home cleaner without completely breaking the bank and adding more stress?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And but I hear from everything you've talked about, professional life, personal life, home, what you're consuming, it's all so intentional, which I feel like it's like owning your life, right? And then again, you even mentioned like the excuses of not having enough time. Like, I feel like you have honesty and intentionality, like two major themes of what I'm hearing of how you function, and probably why we're so drawn to you, because I think it's refreshing to have honest, intentional people, because you're taking in the information and somehow not getting overwhelmed by it, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, not only your life, but your job, you have all of these guests coming all the time with opinions, products, new things, restaurants. Like, I don't know how your head is not exploding. So how do you balance like all of that information of who you follow, who you're interviewing, and then, making these intentional decisions?
Well, we have a great team at the show, so that's a big part of it. I'm not the one making all of the decisions. I'm just curious. I'm a curious person, so I've always really loved to read. Reading is really helpful for me. I'm curious about how things work and what drives people to create what they're creating. I'm interested in people who decide to do certain jobs, like, I don't know, even I'll talk to nurses and I'm like, how do you even do that? I would never be able to do it. I wouldn't make it one day. And they're like, well, we wouldn't make it one day doing what you do. And I'm like, yeah, but really, I mean, this is like, you guys are
nurses are angels. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so curious. I just have always been a curious person. And I like to connect with people. I like to find out more about them, and I'm interested in them. And so that's the thing about the show that just never gets old. And I kind of thought, like, I don't know how long I'll last on this show, and we'll see how it goes. And now it's been almost, what's the date today? No, tomorrow it'll be 16 years on the show.
Oh my gosh.
What?
So
Wow.
and so you kind of go, wow. But the nice thing about work is that what I've loved about it is that work tends to be consistent, where home is inconsistent, because in those 16 years, my work life, although we've changed, I've changed co-hosts, like different things have happened, and the show has certainly evolved, but not nearly to the extent that my home life has evolved. And that's good for me. I think maybe some of our young producers in their 20s will get kind of bored by being like, okay, I've done this and I'm not really moving up. I'm like, okay, I don't want to move up. I don't want to move anywhere. I want to be like, I like where I'm at, where I get to really just enjoy it and be present for it, and not be, thinking about the next thing. Because at home, it's always something different, because everybody's changing and there's 5 people and there's a lot of emotions. I mean, like, you got 5 people. You tell me, is there a day when like one person isn't melting down?
No.
There's not.
No, there's not.
Some days I'm like, can everyone just chill out?
But what you said there, that's so important, the consistency. Like I always think like the nervous system needs that. Like, yes, it needs new and creative ideas and change, but there is something like having some routine, some consistency where like you feel safe. And if you don't have it in your career, can you have that in your work life?
Yeah.
Or vice versa, or your home life,
We're in this culture too, though, where it's always like, you got to hustle, and what are you going to create next? And what are you going to do next? And I think we've lost the appreciation for the beauty of getting good at something and being good at it and enjoying it and being present for it. That's so wonderful. I have been taking pottery classes the last 5 weeks, and I speak about it ad nauseum. I'll talk about it to anyone who will listen, and it's really probably irritating. But I got hooked on watching this guy on YouTube and watching his pottery videos, because I was thinking, I would really like to make like beautiful ramen bowls. Wouldn't that be amazing if I made like beautiful ramen bowls? I love ramen, and I like picking it up and take out, but I don't like eating it out of the container. So I want to get it in glass. So I'm like, how could I do this? And then I was watching this guy, he like has all these beautiful videos, and they're just mesmerizing, and he's just so good at it. And I thought, that's so cool to be really great at a craft, and still always learning, still making mistakes, still taking things to the next level without this obsession of like, I've got to build this company. It's got to go public. I've got to make $300 million when I sell it. Like, what are we doing? I just don't know that definition of success is very strange to me.
I love that. I think that's great to think about too. And especially as a parent, to teach your kids, like, really, like, if you love something, building your character in it, building your skill in it, taking your time doing it. Like, I have a neighbor who, his dad's a basketball coach, but he practices last night I went outside. I'm like, God, it's getting dark, but it's like, it's late. It's like 9 something. He was still shooting hoops. It was like 9:50 p.m. And it's like, it's beautiful when you love something and you want to grow your skills. And like when you say that, I think of podcasting, and it has evolved. Like I was looking at videos from us a couple years ago, and we were just nervous, and we had laptops, and we couldn't just like ask a question. We were like reading from our script, you know? And I can see that with you on Twin Cities Live. Like you're so natural at it. And obviously you've been doing it for a long time. But when we're there, like I said, it's just a conversation. Like there's just a human behind the lights and the cameras, and you are so good at it, and people feel at home when they're watching you, when they're in their homes, when they're in the studio. Like we just want to come back. We just love being there with you. So we want people to be able to find you and get more of you. They probably already know you. We have listeners in 102 countries now, but most of them are Minnesotans, like a lot of our population. So they probably already know you, but if they want to listen to your podcast, they want to follow you on social media, where could people find you and follow you?
Well, all the channels. First, let me say thank you so much, because those words were so kind and generous. And that is how I hope that people feel when they come into the studio, and that I hope that they feel like we really want their best selves to show, and we are genuinely interested and curious about them. And so I like that feedback is really meaningful to me. And you can find me kind of all over. So the show is Twin Cities Live. It's weekdays. It's on KSTP, which is the ABC affiliate in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It is the first local television station to ever broadcast in color. Isn't that fun? Really cool history.
That's
and
amazing.
locally owned by the Hubbard family, which I'm really proud of. And they always like to they don't like to toot their own horn about it. And I'm always like, we are locally owned. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's really great. And so we have a website, twincitieslive.com. We have the KSTP app, where if you're not in the Twin Cities, you can stream us on the KSTP app. We have a lot of snowbirds who will be in, Florida or Arizona or whatever. And they are total pros at the streaming. And so they get to watch the show. My social media, Instagram is at Eliz Ries, Ries. And the podcast is called Best to the Nest. It is available everywhere you get your podcasts. We're also on Instagram as well. And then I'm on Facebook. One thing I am not on and will never be on is TikTok. So you just heard it here. I'm just not gonna do it, guys. I'm not gonna do TikTok.
You kind of got enough going on. Talk about
I don't want to be on. I don't want to look at it. And then Kelly, one of our reporters, she'll like sometimes send me TikTok videos, and then it's like, you have to have TikTok to open this up. And I say, Kelsbells, you got to send this to me a different way. I'm not opening TikTok.
Yeah.
We also love Kelly. I mean, everybody at your show, your producers, Ben, all of them, like the kindness, the just energy from them, and just everybody is so sweet, looks you right in your eyes, like they're just so happy to see you, and so kind, like genuinely kind people. All of them.
We have a great team.
Yes.
We have a great team of people who love telling stories, and they love sharing, and they're interested in people, and that's like the bottom line. I mean, we can teach people to produce segments. We can teach them. What you can't teach people is how to be interested in others and how to really want to amplify other people's voices. And so, that's something I think I'm really proud of too on the show, is just the range of people that we have on. And, there's certainly, there's obviously like different months, like there's Black History Month, there's Pride Month, and those things are important. And at the same time, those are, inclusive measures that we don't even like have to strategically think about. They're integrated into the fabric of our show every single day. And so that's something that I'm really proud of too, that we just have our eyes open always to look at like who's doing something cool and what is it and how can we talk about it in a fun way.
Yeah. And not only do you guys care, but you're funny. Like everyone for us, like what surprised you the most? I was like, they're so funny. Like they're great to listen to. They're great to watch. And then getting to know you behind the show. It's such a gift. I love everything you're doing. I want more. I want to consume it. And it's content that you feel good consuming. You know,
Oh, thanks.
I think that is so important. And with our show, our biggest thing is how do we simplify feeling good? So at the end of every show, we have 3 segments. The first segment is your 3 gold stars. So if you had to leave listeners with 3 top takeaways, what would they be?
Oh gosh, these are good. Okay. I would say define your values. So I think defining your values is really important. And some of this is like people, you know, we're in this like rush culture that people don't even realize that they don't feel good because they're just thinking that that's the normal way to feel. So I think defining what, you know, what is important to you? What is important to you to support? What is important to you to explore? How do you want your home to feel? What do you want your life to look like? That was even a big thing. Like when my husband and I were dating, is I knew that, you know, we have plenty of differences and we have plenty of differences of opinions, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows over here by any means, but I knew that we wanted our life to look the same way. We had an idea of that. And I think that was good. But just really taking a look at, you know, defining what your values are. I think being intentional about as many choices as you can and seeing that as seeing the reduction in options as being liberating rather than restricting. So I think about this even just in terms of like, okay, the meat that I buy, like I just know that I am only going to buy chicken that was pasture raised. Okay. So I pass by anything else in the grocery store that wasn't. And I have a myriad of reasons that I'm happy to discuss with you all at a later date about why that is. But, you know, even like when you go, okay, I'm just going to buy fruit that was organic, or I'm just going to buy this. It's just like, we're so inundated with choices that it's too much, you know, and even with your clothing, with whatever, looking at trying to reduce the amount of choices based on your values as such a freeing thing, I think is really, really important. And then, you know, and then the last thing I would say is probably that's really helped me a lot in terms of, I was just talking to my sister about this. My sister has a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I mean, she is like in the thick of it. Yeah. She is, I mean, and I'm not even like that far out from that. And I have your same reaction. Like I start to just go, I have to like deep breathe because it's so much work.
The tantrums that are happening in that house.
Yeah.
All at the same
and just
time.
a lot of, I mean, just, you can't even get a break.
Yeah.
But identifying your pain point. So we were talking about, you know, like dinner time is really hard for her. Her husband doesn't get home from work until a little bit later. And so she's just like a constant stress. And I was like, what if you called Dad and said, can you just come over from 6 to 7, 3 nights a week to come just have an extra set of hands? And being really intentional about what's the hardest part of your day and not trying to fix everything at once, just looking at what's the hardest part or what's the hardest thing that just isn't getting done or isn't working. And then figuring out a way to either ask for help, outsource, or just take it off of your plate. And that, I think that can be really helpful. Instead of looking at a whole life overhaul, just focus on that one thing. And even the pain point, you can do that even like when you're kitchen, you can look around and maybe tonight, you guys, whoever's listening, you're going to get home and you're going to be like, oh crap, I've got 4 plastic spatulas that I use every single day. Well, guess what today a great day is to buy some wooden ones and toss out the plastic ones. That's a pretty low entry fee to make a high impact change.
How are you cleaning your wooden utensils?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Great question. You just, you can use a mild soap if you want. I use like, you know, those dish brushes that have like a little wooden top and then they're kind of stiff. So I use that to just brush. I will occasionally use a soap if there's like, I don't know, sometimes like scrambled egg kind of gets like gluey on there. So maybe I'll use a little bit, but it's like a mild soap that isn't filled. We're not Dawn power washing this. Okay. We're just like using a nice little soap. And then I just set it to dry, never put them in the dishwasher. And then every like month or so, I have a wood conditioner that I use this for my cutting boards too. Only use wooden cutting boards. And you take this wood conditioner and it's sort of like a salve, like a balm.
Okay.
And I just put it all over, rub it all over. It's like, I mean, it's natural oil, so it's great on your skin too. And then I just let it sit for, I don't know, you can even let it sit overnight. Sometimes they'll do it at night. Let it sit overnight. In the morning, you can just wipe off any excess with a towel and then you're good to go. And they will last forever and they'll be so beautiful and they'll be one of your favorite things.
Yeah, I feel like the cleaning, and I see all these videos on Instagram and TikTok of like, you need all this solution, this vinegar, and you're cleaning and it's dirty. And I'm like, nah. No. So thank you. That helps.
I mean, if you cut like, if you like cut up raw chicken on your, I don't do a lot of cutting of raw meat, to be frank. I just buy meat. Like if I roast a chicken, I just put the whole chicken in, I'm cutting it after it's cooked. But if I were to like cut up raw chicken on my wooden cutting board, then I would probably take half a lemon and swipe the lemon. And you could even do like, if you have anything that is kind of gritty on there, you can take like a coarse salt and a lemon and just kind of scrub, and that'll get it totally clean. The idea that plastic cutting boards harbor less bacteria than wood is a total fallacy. There have been many studies, including from the University of Wisconsin, that have shown that the bacteria residue on wood is less than the bacteria residue on plastic. And every time you're cutting into plastic, you're getting those little tiny microplastic particles that are literally getting into your food every time.
Ooh.
Have I motivated you?
Gosh, I could just, so many questions, but I promise we only have 3 for our last segment here.
Yeah, I have all wooden cutting boards, but my kids, they watched some show that said that they're full of bacteria more than plastic ones. So kids are getting misinformation.
That's the propaganda.
Yep.
That's wrong.
Yep.
Ditch the plastic.
Okay.
Because also when you make those cuts in it, it seeps in more.
Yeah.
And think about like, like plastic clothing, like workout clothes, like it smells more than something that's cotton, which I'm on a quest, guys, to find the best plastic-free athleisure.
I am too.
It's not going great.
Let's
on the struggle
let's
bus. I'm
pair,
a few $100 in.
I want that to be one of our future sponsors, is like a brand we love that's organic, that's not full of all the plastics, because I'm packing for Europe. I'm like, all I wear is workout clothes.
Yeah.
And all of them probably have plastics in them. So that I'm on the same mission.
You guys do your work and you let me know.
I know. I'm trying.
Okay. Next segment is Unleashing Ivy. So just surprise questions we're curious about.
Okay.
And you are just such a leader, Elizabeth. Like you are just such like a trailblazer, and you're doing a lot of things that are kind of against the norm, even though it's like you're kind of going back to the basics. It's like you'd think this would be more the norm. But I want to know who like your mentor is or your idol is, like who you look up to, whether it's professionally, personally, maybe one professional idol mentor you really look up to, and one that's like more personal, homey.
Okay, these are good questions. These are really good. When it comes to, I am like a super fan of farmers. So I always, people think this is funny that, I'll say like, oh my gosh, don't you know that person? They're a really famous regenerative farmer. And other people will go, that is not, no one knows that. Like no one knows who this famous regenerative farmer is. But Joel Salatin is a regenerative farmer that I'm a big fan of. And he has a farm in Virginia. I have read multiple of his books and listened to a ton of podcasts with him. And he is really inspirational in terms of getting back to basics and talking about food as just what it should be instead of what it has become. And I would make the argument that a lot of the food that is available for us to consume, I would not call food. I would call it a food-like product. And how simplicity can be so freeing. So he's someone who I think really inspires me. And then, the others are like local regenerative farmers I'm just in awe of and amazed by. I've gotten to know the family behind Thousand Hills, Lifetime Grazed. They're grass-fed beef and they are incredible. Matt and his daughter Melissa are just unbelievable and they are doing such great things. Peterson Meats in Osceola, Wisconsin is another really great one. The Grace family, who has North Star Bison in Cameron, Wisconsin. I'm just like in awe of these people who are really going against the grain. I mean, because they're legit, like they're up against their neighbors in terms of the land. They're not, they're not fighting their neighbors. They're just like their neighbor's land will be, there's a line and things are done totally differently on the other side. So as far as kind of like in that farmer vein, that would be it. I think my mom is always like a huge influence on me, and she went back to school at 40 and got an interior design degree when she never thought that she would work. Like my dad was a minister. She thought she would be a stay-at-home mom, and then had the realization that turns out Lutheran ministers don't really make a lot of money. And so she was like, if we're gonna like have a life, I need to get a job. And she is an interior designer who is really focused on making people's homes beautiful and functional. And she will like tell me stories about some of her clients who will find her who have been through difficult things or been through loss. And she's been able to really help kind of bring them into their next like beautiful phase of life by creating a home that really reflects who they are.
That's
And
so
I
cool.
don't think that should be undersold. I think your home reflecting who you are is important, and it can be done slowly over time. And it doesn't have to be done on a big budget. If you have a big budget and you can redo everything, then more power to you. But most of us don't. Most of
I
us
want
are
to
just
hire
working on it.
her sometime.
Yeah, she should. She would love to see you. She's
That's
so
like
sweet.
that's like one of my next goals is like hire someone to just kind of revamp my house. We've been in it like 8 years now. New decor,
Yeah.
give it a new look, new season.
Oh, it feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Okay, my question back to food.
Oh, great.
Where are you grocery shopping?
Okay, so I grocery shop all sorts of places. We have a lot of like in terms of stores, I can really find things kind of everywhere. So like in the Twin Cities, we have Lunds and Byerly's, Kowalski's. These are good local chains that I like. There's a little independent market down the street from me that I go to that has lots of great stuff that's like so convenient. This is the joy of living in the city. It's like our little neighborhood market. I also really love co-ops. So Seward Co-op is in my neighborhood. I go there. Lake Winds Co-op is a co-op chain in the Twin Cities that's really great. And then a lot of my groceries are also coming direct. So I do a couple different things. There's a farm called TC Farm that they call it like the regional food system, and it's a delivery system. So I found them because I buy chicken from a farm called Nelson Grass Farm, and they're in Ogilvie, Minnesota. And so I can actually shop through Nelson Grass Farm's website, and then they deliver to my house every Thursday. And it's like a $5 delivery fee. There's an annual fee too. And I can get all sorts of great stuff. So I'm a huge fan of that. Another spot to look is called farmmatch.com. Farmmatch.com, you can enter in your zip code and you can find out where you can get like farm fresh dairy, and then all sorts of other products. And they have drop sites all over the place. So you can just find a spot that's close to you. So I go pick up stuff from that farm at a house in my neighborhood that's like 3 minutes away every Tuesday. So that's really helpful. And then I think a lot of these other delivery services, like ordering directly from farmers, if you get on their email list, like Peterson Meats, Thousand Hills, North Star Bison, like I talked about, I mean, they will ship directly to you. And it's really easy to just go, okay, I'm going to order a big box of beef or a big box of bison and get on their email list, and you can find out when they have specials, or you can drive to the farm and pick it up. And that's a really great way to support them directly. There's another a website called eatwild.com that is a fantastic resource. They have a huge list of, you can kind of put in like based on your values, based on your area, and the farms will write individual descriptions of themselves. So that's a helpful spot. And then also the food guide from the Weston A. Price Foundation is another huge resource. They're incredible. So they have that little pamphlet is like my Bible. So aside from the actual Bible, but it's just like a food Bible, but it is really helpful in terms of sourcing grains and, maybe nuts and like things like that if you're not buying them locally, or you want to try different ones and have them shipped in. So, and then
Wow.
farmers markets, of course. Farmers markets are great resources.
You just gave like the
I love
cheat
that.
sheet
Yes,
for
thank
like
you.
all Minnesotans. And also, some of those, like the website that you mentioned, Sounds like that's like nationally, so it's not just Minnesota. And I
Yep,
also
some of
wanted to
them
plug
are national.
the Maize app, like Maize, like the corn Maize app, helps you find local places that have restaurants that have local farmers that source the food.
Great.
So that app is awesome. We had a guest on, Patrick Legman, who created the app, and it's
that's awesome.
It's amazing. So when you do want to eat out, you can have those options as well.
Yeah. I think we're really lucky, here in this in Minnesota, there's a lot of, the food community is really focused on local. Like I go to restaurants and I know the farmers a lot of times, I'm seeing which farmers they're using and who, and so that feels really good. It's just, I think it's some of these daily habits that we've got to shift. We have to shift culturally. And frankly, I think there has to be legislation to shift what some of these ingredients and things are, because it's not enough to just have these companies like just putting whatever they want in and to be like, well, it's okay, it's safe. Well, okay, but do we really want to be eating it? That's the tough part.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. I love that. I can't wait
That's
to
all that's
I'm going to go, as I edit this, I'm going to document everything that you said and just share it
I know.
all.
I will say too, if you guys, if your listeners are interested in more of this conversation and kind of more of my research, we did, and I can send these to you, but Marjorie and I did a 3-part series called Find Your Farmer on Best to the Nest. And we really dug into just my, I gave you kind of just like a mini version, but I also in those, I really expand on some of the food values that I have and why I think they're important and where they're coming from. And then helping people figure out how they can integrate that into their own homes.
Very cool.
And I think just feeling empowered, you have to feel empowered. I think, some of the temptation on social media or other places can be like, if you're not a registered dietitian, you don't get to have an opinion on food. And I will push back on that 100%. Like I'm a mother and I'm a human being. And so that qualifies me to be able to comprehend research and be able to read ingredients and understand and make educated choices for me and my family. And I think you have to stand firm in that and not feel shamed. You don't need a degree. A degree is great if you have one and you want to, make a living. I think that's fantastic, but you don't need that to feel empowered. And you don't need someone with a degree to tell you what to eat. It can be a great resource, but you are your own primary care provider.
I love that.
Amen, sister.
Elizabeth. Okay, I promise this is the last question you've given.
Oh, gosh.
We have talked about a variety of things today. I love it. Okay, so if you could go back, last question. We love asking this to everyone. If you could go back and tell your younger self something, what age would you choose and what would you tell yourself?
Oh gosh, it would probably be like, I think my most insecure time was middle school, maybe early high school, where I really felt just that pressure to kind of fit in. And I didn't really, I wasn't a person in those years who had a thing that I was really good at. And so that was difficult. I would have friends who were like really into cheerleading or really into soccer or whatever. And I couldn't see the point of those things for me. I mean, it just wasn't for me. And honestly, we didn't have, my family didn't have a ton of resources to be able to put me in a million things and to even sort of try it. And so I think it would be that you're going to find what your thing is and you don't have to, and that thing can shift over time and you don't have to be defined by what you do. That who you are is enough. And that would have been probably helpful to hear as I was sort of feeling like, I don't know, am I this? Am I supposed to be that? Am I that? Ew.
It's so funny you say that because my daughter she's ending 6th grade was just saying this in the car on the way home from dance the other day. She was like, I'm just starting to feel like I just don't even know what I want to study in college. I'm like,
oh, geez.
I know. I'm like, Cora, first of all, I started a business at 35. Like, you don't have to know what you want to study. You don't have to know what you want to be. And it's going to keep changing. And this, like, wherever this pressure is coming from to figure it out, like, you can just let it go. Like,
yeah,
it's interesting. Like, where does that come from? I wonder, if it's the school system that's like getting them to try to figure out what what topic they like in school, what subject they like, or what that is. But I think that is such timely advice. I'm going to share that with my daughter. And like, I'm not the only one that's saying it. Elizabeth is saying it too. Yeah. So thank you. And we've loved having you. This was so much fun.
So fun. Oh, I have so many ideas.
I love this.
You've given so many ideas, so much wisdom, so many pieces of gold, but that's how we end our show, is with a piece of gold. So a quote of yours or something you live by, follow by, whatever is coming to mind, would you please send us off with your piece of gold?
Oh, I would love to. Okay, well, I thought of this because we just had an artist on Twin Cities Live who Kelly found, who did these really beautiful prints, and her it's Blueberry Road is her art, which was really cool. And she had a print with a William Morris quote. And I don't really know much about William Morris, but he would write all of these things about, home and homesteads and all of this. And so then she was like, have you ever heard of him? Like, do you know these quotes? Because she had this print with the quote that I loved so much. And I said, no, now I need to dig into this. And so I found another one from him that I just thought was so appropriate. And the quote is, have nothing in your houses that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold. We want to thank you and encourage you to celebrate yourself for taking the time to learn and get inspired in your one beautiful life. And if this podcast means something to you, it would mean so much to us if you'd be willing to take 30 seconds to help support our mission to keep bringing you inspiring stories and guests.
First, following the podcast is important because it helps you never miss an episode. To do this, just go to the Ivy Unleashed podcast show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow.
While you're there, if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review and share your favorite episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful for your support.
We are thrilled you're here and are so happy that you're taking time to prioritize your wellness, self-discovery, and growth with us. Additionally, we want to remind you that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.